Hi, I'm Cherie Barber and I've been a professional renovator for over 30 years and a national ambassador for asbestos awareness for over a decade. Today I'm going to be showing you what you need to know about asbestos before you start renovating. Now, what we do know is that asbestos is a deadly material, and with 1 in 3 Aussie homes containing it, it's more important than ever to know how to deal with it properly. The first thing you need to know is that asbestos can be dangerous, not just to yourself, but your family, your loved ones, your tradesperson, anybody that can be potentially exposed to fibres during the demolition, maintenance or renovation of your property. Now, I've just arrived at a property that may or may not contain asbestos, and this is a lot of misconceptions that only fibro houses contain the deadly material. It can be brick houses, fibro houses, plastic clad, the list goes on. Here's a not so fun fact. Asbestos was so popular back in the day. In fact, it was the hottest thing since sliced bread. Tradies loved working with it because it was really cheap to buy, it was durable, it was waterproof, it was easy to cut. It had so many positives.
It cuts with a score and snap and bends easily. Yet hardy plank is asbestos cement, really tough. It won't rot, warp or split, and is unaffected by termites.
She's using Kentile vinyl asbestos tile. Save every way with Kentile vinyl asbestos tile.
And then decades later, we found out it was a potentially fatal building material. It was so popular that it was used in over 3,000 building and home decoration products. So when you think of asbestos, please don't think it's just fibro. Firstly, asbestos could be present in any home built or renovated before 1990. That includes brick, timber framed, weatherboard, plastic cladded houses, fibro homes, apartments, garages, outdoor toilets and sheds. Now, whilst that all sounds a little scary, the good news is asbestos is very manageable. First of all, jump on asbestosawareness.com.au website, because that website has really great resources to bring you up to speed very quickly. It also contains a residential property checklist to help you identify it in your home. Hey Matt, how are you?
Good.
Good. All right, let's have a look.
Sure.
Matt and his wife Cassie are contemplating purchasing this home with plans to renovate it. But first up, they need to get an asbestos report done to determine if the property has asbestos, so they can then cost that up and factor it into their renovation budget. Okay, Matt, so yourself and your wife, you've got a couple of little kiddies, are thinking about buying this unrenovated house. It looks like it was built probably around late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
You have a very personal story about asbestos.
Yeah, we lost Mum 10 years ago to asbestos cancer, mesothelioma, and she was a DIY renovator through the 80s, 70s and 80s with Dad, and she also worked renovating pubs when she was much younger as well, all that would have contained asbestos.
And I understand that prior to your mum passing away, which is very, very sad, that she did fantastic work just trying to educate as many Australians as she possibly could about the perils of asbestos. She even got an Order of Australia, is that right?
Yeah, she did. She outlived the prognosis. She did 8 years with the disease, and during that period of time she campaigned so heavily on the aspects of awareness and informing other people around the dangers of asbestos. And she did, receive an Order of Australia medal, which was a real honour to the whole family.
The sad part about all of this is not only has she missed things like your weddings and those really important family occasions, her death was totally preventable. All right, so the asbestos inspector is going to be here pretty shortly. It'll be really interesting to see what he says. Let's take a look at the sorts of places asbestos might be lurking. So walking in one of the downstairs room, this ceiling literally is asbestos. I can tell, been around the trap for a while. This wall here may or may not be, that's the hard thing, we don't know, so that needs to be tested. This is a decorative chipboard panel, so that wouldn't be asbestos, but you know what, the wall behind it could be. Even this old fluoro light would be the first thing you rip out, right? Electrician can't come in and just rip that down willy-nilly, because being an asbestos ceiling, those fibres can become airborne. And what we don't know right now, whether it takes one fibre or numerous fibres to be inhaled to contract diseases like mesothelioma, of which there is no cure. All right, let's go check out your kitchens, bathroom and laundry.
Sure.
All right, Matt, so one of your bathrooms, well, this one's definitely seen better days. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to work out this one would be demolished. This is the problem. A lot of renovators come through, just smash off the tiles willy-nilly, not knowing those walls could be asbestos. Shower cubicle as well, ceilings, walls. Now this looks like it's some sort of old lounge room. Dead giveaway is the jointing strip. So this ceiling is probably asbestos. See the little nail holes? Just a little telltale sign of asbestos. I'm thinking, Matt, this property is probably riddled with it.
So, Cherie, this is the old external wall. Again.
So they've built an extension on. A lot of
Probably
people wouldn't
asbestos.
realise that. They'd think, oh, external wall's asbestos, but this is actually the old external wall that's now internal wall.
Correct.
All right, let's check out your kitchen, Matt. All right, Matt, so asbestos is almost always in kitchens. Are you planning on demolishing this kitchen or keeping it?
Cherie, I think it needs to go.
Yeah. A very good chance that all these cabinets are anchored to asbestos walls. These tiles certainly would be. Under your sink, the matting under your sink would probably be asbestos. And we've also got these lino floor tiles. Look great in the day, but don't look so great now. People rip this up willy-nilly, not knowing that the lino or the glue that's on the floor could contain asbestos. You can remove up to 10 square metres of asbestos yourself. I think that is the most stupidest, most silliest law ever. You're dealing with a deadly material. Don't play with it at all. Just get the licensed asbestos removers in to deal with it. You know, if you're dealing with a property like this where, you know, all the floors and walls have asbestos, you don't need to go and demolish all of it, get it removed all at once. You can definitely stage it as well, which is probably what your plan of attack is, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we've seen most of the rooms internally. Why don't we check out the externals and also check under the house?
Sure.
All right, Matt, so this is just your typical brick house. It has cladding on the front there. Most people would assume this isn't a fibro house. You and I know it probably is. Well, it is. Could be asbestos behind the cladding.
Yeah.
The eaves are 100% asbestos, as a lot of Australian houses are.
We've got the electrical switchboard meter box.
Yeah, so
Again.
the asbestos plate on the backing
Yeah.
there. And also, if you're planning to demolish these driveways, are you?
Possibly, yeah.
Asbestos
They
could have
might
been
have
used as a filler in these as well.
Yeah, that's it.
So you got a big job ahead of you.
We would.
All right, Matt, let's have a look under the house. So most people probably wouldn't assume asbestos is under their house, but it can be. So I can see there some old fibro sheets laying around. They've got that dimpled sort of texture, which is a dead giveaway. And here, so we've got asbestos probably sprayed on this sort of brick wall here as well. All right, so that's a risk. And I can see some asbestos packers. Let's find out what's involved and what to expect with an asbestos inspection. John, a lot of people haven't done an asbestos inspection before. What can they expect?
Typically, a professional would come out and assess the building, starting in the kitchen, and they're working their way around the house, ensuring they're checking all the building materials to see if there is any suspect material in there. If they suspect that there is asbestos within a building material, they'll take a sample carefully and then send that to a lab for analysis.
So it gets sent to the lab. How long does that typically take?
So turnaround is typically around 1 to 2 days. It can be expedited if you need to get that report turned around quicker.
Now I know a lot of people will be really curious, cost to get an asbestos inspection. What are people roughly looking at?
Typically you'll be looking at around about $600 to $1,500 for a typical house.
Yep.
Now if that's a larger house or in a different location, that may change.
Collecting a sample is a simple process that's safe. What I'll do is I'll find a discreet, accessible location to take the sample. We use an appropriate tool to take a sample to the full depth of the material, and then we place it in a uniquely labelled bag, and if needed we'll decontaminate the immediately surrounding area and seal the actual material that we've sampled with some tape or an adhesive or some sort of sealant.
John, you're an asbestos assessor. Why is it so important for homeowners to get these checks done?
We need to get a professional out there who can do that assessment, take the samples and confirm that it is asbestos, because we want to make sure that we're removing asbestos so we're not removing the other materials at the same time.
So where can people typically find it internally?
So internally you'd be looking at bathrooms, kitchen, laundries, wet areas, typically the walls and ceilings.
Yeah.
Also need to be aware that it was in floor coverings as well.
Floor coverings being what? Carpet, vinyl floor tiles, old lino?
So it could be in the vinyl tile itself, it could be in the glue, it could also be in the paper backing of that vinyl sheeting that you might uncover in the kitchen or the laundry.
And what about carpet?
So carpet, it may be within the underlay. It's not very common, but we need to be aware that it might be in there, typically because they use the old Hessian bags as underlay within houses. You can also find it as spray insulation in roof cavities, as well as underfloor in packers.
And for an old property like this, where can they find it externally?
So externally, you typically find it as a wall cladding, as well as in the eaves. Flue pipes associated with hot water systems would typically contain asbestos as well. What people would do is, to save costs, they wouldn't remove the old asbestos cement cladding and they'd clad straight on top of that. And that's something you need to be aware of, because it looks like an amazing clad property that won't be of concern. However, you look underneath and you'll find it.
You also find it in strange places like concrete paths. They used to do it as filler as well. So I guess the message there is that whilst you might not think your property has asbestos, it can be lurking in the most unusual places. And I think for the small cost to pay for the asbestos report, somewhere between $600 to $1,500, it's a very small price to pay for the health and safety of your loved ones. Medical bills 10, 20, 30 years down the track will be a lot more.
Oh, definitely. And not only that, you know, potentially the costs of the disposal of the material that you've got. So for instance, if you go through and demolish a property that contained asbestos, all that material then needs to go off as asbestos waste. So you've got the tipping bill that needs to be covered as well, in addition to the removal costs. So the cost will increase significantly if you don't remove it correctly in the first place.
So you absolutely have to respect asbestos because it is a deadly material. I think it's really important that homeowners know that asbestos is not dangerous if it's not broken, it's not deteriorated. It's when that material is broken or deteriorated that it poses a health risk.
So asbestos-containing materials are typically quite sturdy in their nature. However, if you drill them, cut them or sand them, they will release fibres, and they're the ones that will get into your lungs and cause disease in the future.
So don't drill into it, don't smash it with a hammer, don't scrape it, don't water blast it, just don't touch it.
Absolutely.
So getting the asbestos report done is super easy.
Yeah, definitely. The guys will come in, typically spend about 2 hours going around, similar to a pest inspection. They'll knock on a few walls, collect a couple of samples, and they'll be out of your hair.
So it's essentially homeowner orders the report, they pay the bill, within a week they get a report saying it's here, here and here.
Definitely, and it'll come with some nice pictures as well, so you know exactly where it is.
So what are the next steps? Well, before Matt and Cassie buy this property, they'll get a licensed asbestos remover in to give them a quote. In some states of Australia, you can remove up to 10 square metres yourself, and certainly some people will DIY asbestos removal themselves. Our advice is don't, because you're dealing with a deadly material. Have a think about this. What is the cost of your own life or the cost of a life of a loved one? Okay, Matt, you've got your asbestos report. I've brought Brett in, who's an absolute expert at all things government and regulatory come asbestos. Now, Brett, you and I both know that in terms of asbestos removal, there's a lot of cowboys in this industry. Some homeowners will go and get asbestos removed, thinking they're using professionals, and then we've seen the news reports where suddenly a truckload of asbestos is dumped out the front of a childcare centre. So to avoid all of that sort of stuff happening, what do homeowners need to look for in terms of appointing a licensed asbestos remover?
They need to ensure the contractor, the actual company, has a licence, and they can find this out by going to WorkSafe or Safe Work in their particular state, and they can go online and search this to make sure that they actually have a contractor's licence. And those contractors will then have people that will work for them that will have removal tickets. So you've got a licence and then you have removal tickets.
Okay, so the head contractor, typically the owner of the business, will have a licence and all their workers will have a ticket that says they've undergone some level of asbestos training.
Correct.
When people get asbestos removed from their property, talk to me about tipping dockets or tipping receipts.
So when you take it from the actual premises, you'll take it then to a landfill that is licensed to accept asbestos, and then they'll provide you with some documentation, typically a docket, at the point of when you actually leave the disposal facility, that will say you've tipped asbestos. If you want to take asbestos removal legally, I advise that you engage a licensed asbestos removal contractor and licensed company. This will then ensure that the notifications to neighbours and the state regulatory authorities such as Safe Work New South Wales is undertaken. They will come to site, they will erect signage, they'll set up fencing, and they'll undertake removal works with ticketed personnel, and they will double wrap in 200 micron plastic and dispose of the asbestos legally. Once this is undertaken, they'll then ensure that a clearance certificate is obtained through an independent competent person or licensed asbestos assessor to allow reoccupation of that area without PPE.
All right, let's talk about asbestos clearance certificates. What are they? Why do you need them?
Clearance certificates are undertaken by independent companies, independent people. They can't be undertaken by the actual removal company themselves unless they get an exemption. So what that is, it's a clearance certificate is when the removal has been completed, then this independent person comes in and does a visual inspection to say that the area is now safe for reoccupation without wearing personal protective equipment.
The asbestos clearance certificate is where the people that originally did your report, or an independent assessor, it's always easiest to go back to the original company that did the report, come back in, visually inspect the area to say, all okay, your property's fit for occupation.
Absolutely correct.
All right. All right, so just to quickly recap from a government regulatory point of view, make sure that you use a licensed asbestos remover, make sure that the head contractor holds the licence and all their workers hold a ticket. Make sure that you get a copy of the tipping receipt. It's your only guarantee that the asbestos has gone to the proper landfill disposal stations. Make sure that you notify work cover. So if you decide today that you want to remove the asbestos tomorrow, you can't. You've got to give work cover or those government regulatory bodies in your state a minimum of 5 days notice.
The contractor will do that for you, yes.
Do the right thing by your neighbours, give them a minimum 2 days notice, and ideally 3, 4, 20 metres in each direction notice.
The contractor will do that for you as well.
The contractor will do that, thank you. And then make sure right at the very end that you get that independent person in, probably best easiest to get the person who did the original report to come back into your property. They'll inspect everything very quickly and they'll say, asbestos remover's done a good job, your property's clear, fit for habitation. Have I missed anything?
No, that's right.
Awesome. If you're renovating on a tight budget, like so many Australians are these days, you might be tempted to remove asbestos yourself. Don't. While in some states it's legal for property owners to remove up to 10 square metres of asbestos themselves, we strongly recommend against it. You've got to remember, you're dealing with a deadly material, so it's definitely a job best left to the pros. The smartest thing to do is just factor the cost into your renovation budget.
John, so we finished the asbestos removal last week and the demo. Where are we at now?
We had our licensed asbestos assessor here during the removal phase. The licensed asbestos assessor was undertaking asbestos air monitoring, and I'm happy to say that all the controls were appropriate for the work and all the results came back below detection limit. So now let's get our team in there and do our visual clearance inspection just to make sure that all the asbestos has been removed appropriately and the area is safe for your trades to come back in and do what they need to do.
John, so we've uncovered that, there's more asbestos behind the existing kitchen. We knew there was some there. The kitchen's going to get removed later. Where's this sit now with the clearance and again, what's the process?
Yeah, sure. So this is a great find. It is typical for your older style houses where there have been multiple renovations done over time. And you'll see that you've got the original asbestos cement sheeting and then you've got multiple layers on after that. In and itself is not a problem. However, as you are noting that the kitchen will be renovated in the future, that will need to be removed under asbestos conditions before you start the kitchen work and ensure that, as you've done previously, it gets done by a licensed asbestos removal contractor and a licensed asbestos assessor or competent person comes through and does that final clearance.
So, John, they pointed out this area here and obviously sprayed it yellow so it's nice and visible. Some existing asbestos that we're not going to disturb. It's not part of what we're doing in this build.
Yeah, it's quite common, Matt. Typically you find that people have done removals in the past and where they've put in a new slab, they've just used it as packing material. Generally that in its condition and as it is now is not a risk. If the concrete slab was to be removed, generally we would need to remove the whole lot as asbestos containing materials. However, as the slab is remaining there, as long as we enclose that and ensure it is not accessible, then that is fine to remain as it is. However, we need to be conscious that if we are doing any works in the future, we need to be aware that it is there, and that's generally within a register. Obviously, if you are going to be excavating in this area at a future stage, it does need to be removed as asbestos material.
The clearance certificate, why do we need that?
So it's ultimately our final certification that the asbestos has been removed appropriately. So our licensed asbestos assessor or our competent person will go through and visibly inspect each area of the removal and ensure that there's no residue remaining on the timber members, for instance, there's no debris or dust on the ground surface, and ensuring the transit route where they're taking the waste from the removal area out to their trucks is nice and clean. And that ultimately allows you that confidence that your trades can go in there and not be exposed to asbestos when they're doing their work.
All right, John, so we're all finished now?
Matt, I'm happy to say that we've finalised the clearance inspection. Ollie, our licensed asbestos assessor, was able to go through and do the visual clearance of the area, and now we can assure you that the area is safe for reoccupation. You can rest assured that your contractors can come back in and do what they need to do, and that's complete.
Okay, let me quickly recap. So these are the 4 key steps. Number 1, jump on asbestosawareness.com.au. Number 2, if you suspect your property may have asbestos, get an asbestos report done. Number 3, if your property does have asbestos, always use licensed asbestos removers to deal with it properly. And number 4, factor the cost of the asbestos report and asbestos removal into your renovation budget, ideally before you buy the property.